Important information to cover right now. I was not planning on this, but as news happens, sometimes my hand is forced. So this is a very important news because this is something that is going to affect everybody, regardless if you're in Bitcoin or not. This is going to affect everybody. So stay tuned. We're going to get started. What's going on, Mr. Cruz? There in Florida. What's happening? See, Veronica, what's going on? Also, Victor, what's happening? Elaine, I see you. Welcome, everybody. What's going on? Shane, all the way down there in New Zealand. What's happening? You guys see that picture I have for this? My man Chris McCoy said this dude Brandon Ivey broke the net today. That was from yesterday. You guys didn't know yet. I made a response video to a MLM seven-figure earner, a top leader in this industry named Stormy Wellington, who literally had a meltdown on her video when she was attempting, I guess, to give her opinion on Bitcoin, and she failed miserably. Failed miserably. I love her to death. You know, I have nothing personally against her. She was just dead wrong, so I had to say something on it. So that's what my friend says. I broke the internet yesterday in that video. But today is a lot more serious. Ever since I started doing Facebook Lives and I've been teaching about the importance of cryptocurrency and why it's needed, I've said you must pay attention to geopolitics. You must pay attention to our government. What's going on behind the scenes that you don't see on the news? Most people go to work. They get their news from either their app on their phone, or what people say on Facebook, or what their coworkers are talking about, or Fox or CNN. And that goes to the extent of it. You're not being told what's really happening out there. You got to do the research yourself to find out. And that's something I have been doing. I've been researching the history of money, how money got to where it is today, and to know how inflation works. Why it's so important whenever the news talks about, is the Fed going to raise interest rates this year or not? What that means to us. What the financial crisis of 2008 meant to us. By the way, we're still in it. Listen to Doug Casey. That's the name I couldn't freaking remember yesterday on my live. Listen to Doug Casey, economics forecaster. He says, it's not a matter of if the US dollar collapses. It's a matter of when. And many things need to happen for the US dollar to collapse. You know, when you look at all of the great empires in history, they did not collapse because they were conquered by an outside force. They collapsed from within, on top of themselves. And America is only 241 years old. You know how I always know that number? Because I was born July 13th, 1976, just a week and a half after America's bicentennial 200-year anniversary. So I just added 2 before how old I am, and that's how old I know America is. 241 years old is America. The current money that you know right now, the US dollar, as it is in its current form, has only been here since 1971 in its current form. Before that, it's only been around for less than 100 years. The reason why 1971 is so important is because that is when we were taken off of the gold standard, where the US dollar is essentially backed by nothing but faith of the people using it and the federal government. George Bush Jr. had a famous speech when we almost had a market crash. I think we did have a market crash, where he talked about, you know, the faith of the people. Yeah, 2008. Why banks are too big to fail. Why the government had to come in and bail out everybody except us. that our economy is held up by straws right now. The world dominance of America is done in two places, by two ways. The first way is diplomatic solutions. Whenever you hear that word, they mean that if a country decides to act crazy, then we will use our economic power and put sanctions on them. And in a sense, isolate them from the rest of the world. Shut them down. Why? Because the world is run by the US dollar. What were to happen if the US dollar were to disappear? How would America continue to have dominance? Well, the only other way is our military. When all diplomacy doesn't work, meaning us threatening to shut people's bank accounts down don't work, then we use our military. So if you're the rest of the world, and I mean ancient countries, America's only 241 years old. These countries survived before there was a United States of America. If you're Russia, China, Iran, formerly known as Persia, the Ottoman Empire, Eastern Europe, Asia, if you're these nations that have been here for centuries, thousands of years, and you were really demolished because of World War I and World War II, and you've had to rely on the United States and the US dollar just to rebuild and get back to where you are now, and you want to get back your claim to glory, what you believe is rightfully so, you're not going to be a friend to the United States. That doesn't mean you're going to be an enemy. That means you're going to be a competitor. And you're not going to beat us on the battlefield. No nation on the world can beat us on the battlefield. But you don't have to beat us on the battlefield to win. What if they decide to attack our economy, attack our system, attack our infrastructure, digital warfare? It's already been declared on us. What were to happen when the rest of the world says, you know what? We don't want to use the US dollar anymore. Iran decides, you know what? We're not going to use the US dollar because we can use cryptocurrencies and bypass sanctions. We don't need the banks anymore. We don't need the US government anymore. We don't need the United Nations. We're surviving on crypto. The United States has also racked up so much freaking debt, it's ridiculous. That it's a surprise that it hasn't already collapsed on itself. We're propping it up with faith. China owns so much of our debt, it's crazy. What were to happen if they were to call on that note? See, the reason they don't is because they don't want to piss off the United States. You know, how we may respond. But I said it's coming. That's why you need to pay attention to what these other countries are doing in the crypto space, because they're looking at it as a substitute, an alternative for the US dollar. The chief of the IML, the International Monetary Fund, has already stated she believes that they need to replace the US dollar as the world currency with a brand new crypto coin that they create. She already stated this 2 months ago. So why am I doing this emergency Facebook Live? It's because an article just popped up. The first official one I've seen on this. And it is titled, Iran and China seek to eliminate US dollar from bilateral trade. Now, I have not read this article yet. I'm going to read it with you right now. This is how I'm learning. This may not, I don't even think they may even mention Bitcoin in this article. But it is very, very, very important nonetheless. So I'm going to take this link to this, post it in. I don't know why I didn't see this yesterday, because this came out yesterday actually. And I'm just now seeing it. I know why, because yesterday we was all dealing with Stormy, huh? MLM leaders losing their minds, going crazy because of crypto. All right, let's read this article and I'll give my comments on this. Iran and China seek to eliminate US dollar from bilateral trade. Dollar dumping, used to be mere rumor 5 years ago. But Tehran, Russia, and Beijing are determined to find ways to avoid using the US dollar. See, I don't make this crap up. I don't sit in my basement and just think, oh, well, I'll just make this up today and talk about it. I have a degree in political science. I was trained to be a lawyer. I've worked in D.C. I worked for Congressman Jose Serrano. I know politics. I'm a forecaster. And this stuff is hitting the waves now. So I'm going to read that part again. This is very important. This is for all Americans. Dollar dumping used to be mere rumor 5 years ago. But Tehran, Russia, and Beijing are determined to find ways to avoid using the US dollar as a settlement currency in trade, according to a report by Iranian Economic Daily Financial Tribune. The topic of de-dollarization, that's what they're calling it, was raised at a meeting between leading Chinese government political advisor Qin Yan and Iranian central bank officials in Tehran. Why are the Chinese talking with the Iranians? What do they have in common? Rial-Yun's bilateral monetary agreement can have a significant role in increasing the volume of trade between the two countries, and in this regard, we have conducted a series of negotiations with the Central Bank of the Republic of China's president, said the Central Bank of Iran's governor, Valiolov Sif. Let me stop right there for a second. Why is Iran putting their foot on the gas on this right now? You guys, you should be able to connect the dots, because we just made an agreement with them on their nuclear program. And the agreement was we were going to ease sanctions and give them access to billions of their own money. Donald Trump, during the election, said that it was a bad deal, that Iran is going to win because now we're about to give them billions of dollars. He never said it's their own money, because it was their own money. We're just giving them access to their own money. But by doing that, the deal was we kept them in check on their Iranian nuclear program. But what happened recently? Donald Trump, I'm not reading this, guys, I'm just telling you some facts. Donald Trump came out first with tweets, still stating, as soon as I get elected, I'm going to rip up that Iranian deal. That's a bad deal. And by ripping that up, here's what ends up happening. We go back to the way things were before. If Iran doesn't immediately stop, we throw sanctions on them. So if you are the leaders in Iran, this is where you've got to think outside of your own self sometimes. Most people, when they're in arguments, they are thinking the other person is thinking just like them. One thing I was always taught in a debate: always know the other person's point of view and have the ability to express their position better than they can. By doing so, you have the upper advantage because you know your point of view, which they don't know, and you know their point of view better than them. That's kind of how I made that video on Stormy Wellington yesterday. I know why she did what she did. She didn't express it, but I knew what the real deal was. Only thing she admitted to was the fact that she was scared. That's the most truthful thing she said yesterday in her video. Or was it 2 days ago she made it? Because I responded yesterday. That she was scared. And I just explained why she was scared. See, I seriously doubt, well, maybe, I don't know. I don't want to talk politics too much, because we've got people on both sides, and people treat politics like religion. So I am not endorsing nor condemning anything in what I'm saying here as far as Donald Trump. I'm only stating what is happening, okay? I want to make that point clear. Don't get offended. So, if you put yourself in Iran's shoes, and you have the President of the United States threatening to rip up the current deal that wasn't even popular for them. Their leaders were seen as sellouts because they made a deal with America. They put their entire reputation on the line with death threats because they made a deal with America. And you have the current American president saying, we're going to rip that deal up because we want to be more tougher on Iran. If you're their leadership, what would you do? This is what the CIA does. The CIA, we got to think like our enemies. What would our enemy do? How would they attack us? Here's how. Rule number one, we've got to stop the bleeding. How can we get around U.S. sanctions? How can we do that? What alternatives are there so that if U.S. puts sanctions on us, we're not going to be hurt? Russia's thinking the same way. China's thinking the same way. So let me continue to read this. Tehran has been pursuing the goal of eliminating the dollar in its trade and has been trying to sign currency swap agreements with a few target countries. Chin said that Iran and China should develop their banking links and also underline the unfairness of the existing financial system, dominated by a few developed countries. He added, other nations would do better if the unfair system is eliminated. He said, we could use the experiences of European countries in establishing the euro as a common currency between many countries, which is not exclusively controlled by a single country. But until then, we need to utilize the maximum available capacities to expand our banking relations. However, any such initiatives require time and effort by several countries, the Chinese officials said. There's another article. I'm going to continue here. It goes on to talk about Russia. It says, Iran suggests that Russia help isolate the Americans by ditching the dollar. So look at this, look at the, what do you want to call it, the pole shift that's taken place here, the bloc. When you look at World War II, you know, you had the Eastern Bloc, the Western Bloc after the war was over. Russia, or the Soviet Union, was our ally in World War II. And when the war was over, the wall went up in Germany. You had the Eastern Bloc and the Western Bloc. You had communism versus capitalism, democracy. So you had the Eastern Bloc. They're trying to create their own bloc here. Iran, Russia, China, next, in North Korea, Syria. So let me read this part. It says, the best way, I just said this, the best way to beat U.S. sanctions against Iran and Russia is joint efforts to dump the American currency in bilateral trade. I haven't read this article yet. I'm just reading this for the first time. They're trying to get around U.S. sanctions. According to the Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, by ignoring the negative propaganda of the enemies that seek to weaken relations between countries, we can nullify U.S. sanctions. Nullify it. Using methods such as eliminating the dollar and replacing it. What are you going to replace it with? Replacing it with national currencies and transactions between two or more parties. Thus, isolate the Americans. He said on Wednesday at a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Tehran. Let me stop there for a second. You've got the Russian president in Iran. You've got Russian interference in American government and elections. You've got the Russians already creating, and Vladimir Putin has already dictated, put an order out that by July 1st of next year, they better have, the banks in Russia better have their digital currency online, which is called the ruble coin. Think about this for a second. He just said it. The Supreme Leader says we need to nullify the U.S. sanctions by eliminating the dollar and replacing it with a national currency. Russia is creating a new national currency. You guys get this? Next, China will do the same thing because China doesn't want Bitcoin. They want blockchain technology. They want to use cryptocurrency to get away from the US, but they're going to create their own coin. Iran may not create their own coin, but they may adopt the Russian ruble, the ruble coin. This is a well thought out plan that these countries are doing. What is the United States doing? Sicking the SEC on everybody messing around with Bitcoin. Got their heads up there. Well, you know what? Pay attention to what's going on in the world. United States is way behind on this. Canada is leading the way more than the U.S. is. Let me continue. According to Khomeini, economic relations have vast room for improvement. In the transportation sector, we can expand cooperation using the main access of Chabahar Port to the port of St. Petersburg, as well as in other economic areas, he said. During the meeting, which lasted about an hour and a quarter, Putin replied that Russia considers Iran, get this, a strategic partner and a great neighbor, and we will take advantage of every opportunity to expand and consolidate relationships in all dimensions. Do you know what that word all dimensions means? In every aspect, in every way. That's like telling a woman, I love you with all my heart. I love everything about you. One of the main dimensions of Iran is nuclear power. So if Trump goes ahead and dismantles the agreement already in place, and then if Iran says, great, we're going to go back to trying to develop nuclear weapons, and then Trump decides to put more sanctions on them, and you know what Iran's going to say? Go ahead. We don't need your sanctions. We got to deal with Russia. And now we can make another deal with Russia so that they can help us in our nuclear ambitions. So now you have a nuclear partner out there that can directly help and aid Iran in acquiring nuclear technology. And there's not a damn thing America could do about it except declare war, which is exactly what Israel will do. If Israel feels threatened, the moment they feel threatened by Iran, they will attack. And United States is their #1 ally, which means we will have to back them up. What else major news just happened today? What did Trump just announce? We are now officially recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, breaking away from decades-long of policies of the United States, both Democrat and Republican. Not even Ronald Reagan would touch that one. We remained neutral and kept our embassy in Tel Aviv. What this is doing is going to push the Muslim world to be more opposed to the United States. And it's going to force them to feel like they're going to have to defend Palestine, which is going to force them to say, hey, yeah, we need to go ahead and get these nuclear weapons on point. Why? Because Israel has nuclear weapons. Iran feels vulnerable. That's why they want nuclear weapons. I am not telling you right now what is right or wrong. I am only telling you what is fact on the ground, what is taking place. This is not opinion. This is a fact. And if you are a responsible leader of Iran, you're going to do what's in your best interest. And the United States does not have Iran's best interests at heart. And then you got the United States competitor, main competitor, Russia, coming in saying, hey, don't worry, we got you back. Forget the U.S. Don't worry about the sanctions. We got the Russian ruble coming out. We got the nuclear technology coming out. This is all public. This isn't behind the scenes. Let me continue. The Russian president said the U.S. wants to interfere in all matters of the world and the region and often ignores interests of its allies to do so. That is a fact. I'm American. I don't like it, but it's a fact. What he said is true. However, Let's go on. Since 2014, despite the sanctions, this is what Putin says, we devoted our funds to scientific and technological progress, and we had significant growth in the fields of biotechnology, IT, agriculture, and space industries. Now, in spite of the initial concerns, we have realized that we can do whatever we decide to do, said Vladimir Putin, while visiting the Iranian capital to attend a trilateral summit with the leaders of Iran and Azerbaijan. That is a declaration right there. That is a middle finger to the West, saying, I don't care how big and bad your military is. I don't care how much control of the economy, the world economy you have. We've been working since 2014 to be self-sufficient from you guys. So it doesn't matter what you say. We can do whatever the hell we want to do because we no longer have to fear any repercussions from the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the weakest our country has been since World War I. Right now. It's a sad state of affairs. But as Americans, there's only so much we can do besides electing who we want in office. We have to be in a position to take care of our own families. That's always been the American way. Not relying on the government, taking care of ourselves. We need to be thinking exactly like the Russians are, exactly like the Iranians are, exactly like the Chinese are. We cannot depend on our government to have our best interests at heart because they don't. They've got special interests, they've got the banks, they've got the billionaires, and the government's first interest before the people. So we need to protect our own families. That's why cryptocurrency is so important. So I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of free knowledge of what's going on around the world and how it's going to impact us long term. As an American citizen, my biggest fear is that our government is not taking this seriously until it's too late. John McAfee already said Pandora's box has been opened. Bill Gates already said Bitcoin can't be stopped. But the average American citizen right now is like Stormy Wellington, ranting and raving and screaming and calling the dollar is king. She probably still thinks it's being backed by gold because we ain't educated on financial literacy. That's the average American citizen. Don't know crap and think that the US dollar is dominating, not even realizing the fact that it's only worth 5% of what it was 100 years ago, and that the rest of the world is about to dump it. So that dollar you flashing ain't going to be worth nothing except toilet paper. That's why I made my video yesterday. I couldn't let what she said stand because she influences a whole lot of people. And you cannot have the ignorant leading the more ignorant. And I say that with all due respect. Get educated before you open your mouth. Because you look like a fool to everybody else that knows something's going on. And you quickly realize that everybody knows something's going on except you. You're the one that's left out. But that's how the rest of the world is looking at the United States right now. If we don't get on the ball on this and lead the way, instead of trying to control it, we are in for the biggest financial crash in American history. I can't tell you how many economists that I'm watching and listening to that are predicting this. Some are already predicting it sometime in the third or fourth quarter of 2018. What are you going to do if the entire economy collapses and you run to the bank, try to pull out your money, and they freeze the banks? What are you going to do? Where's your money safely hidden or insulated? Or will you sit back and just wait for the Fed coin and for Donald Trump to come save us? is not going to happen. So with that, I'm about to take a nap. So when you work for yourself, you can do that. I'm going to take a nap, and we'll see if any new news pops up for late night crypto talk tonight. If there's no new news, you know, then I'm going to go make some money. If there are, then we'll be back later on tonight. But this just popped up. It's not, it should be on the cover of Washington Journal, New York Times, the LA Times. It should be on CNN. It should be on Fox. It should be on Bloomberg. This should be nationwide news right now. A sound of the alarms. We are under attack. And we're too busy worrying about how many girls Roy Moore has sexually assaulted when he was in his 30s. We still have Puerto Rico without even freaking power. How is that? How is that possible? This is the United States of America. And our own territory, our own American citizens, months after the hurricane, don't have consistent internet, don't have power. We have the power to rebuild the entire infrastructure in a week if we wanted to. How is that possible? So you cannot rely on the government. What is your game plan for your family? Feel free to share this with everybody. I'm taking a nap. I'll see you all tonight. Bitcoin Brandon out. Bye-bye.